that is actually teaching Faye, your subconscious, that you can do it, and that actually removes some of the limiting beliefs. Because at the point, the day before I got the text message, in my head, my skepticism was 100% sure that I couldn't diet. Now 4 years in, I know that I'm mentally much, much stronger than most people, and that's because I have built really strong discipline, mental and physical discipline over the years, gradually, very gradually and gently.
Welcome to Thriving with Diabetes, the podcast where we empower people with type 2 diabetes. I am your host, Ghamdan, a holistic wellness coach, helping people overcome challenges related to type 2 diabetes. I have dedicated my passion for health and wellness to helping people like you navigate the complexities of diabetes. I believe that with the correct knowledge, support and mindset, you can lead a more fulfilling life while managing your health condition. In today's episode of the Thriving with Diabetes podcast, we are talking about an inspiring journey of transformation and self-motivation. We will learn about the remarkable story of Tom Salvini, who went from facing health challenges and struggles to thriving with diabetes. Tom will share his mission, strategies to avoid diet misery, overcoming limiting beliefs, and the keys to self-motivation for lasting change. So I'm excited to have our guest with me today, Tom Salvi. As you know that our podcast is all about empowering people with type 2 diabetes to lead healthier and more fulfilling lives. And having experts like Tom on the show helps us achieve that goal. It is always inspiring to learn about our guests' perspectives and experiences. Before we dive into our discussion, I would love Tom to introduce himself, share some background about him and what he does. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Tom. Tom, welcome to Thriving with Diabetes podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Ghamdan. I suppose it all started about 4 years ago, and what happened was my loving wife gently nagged me to go to the doctors, and I went to the doctors, and the doctor basically said to me, I'm overweight and I need to lose weight. Now at that point I actually knew that there was nothing new in that. I'd been ignoring that fact for decades. It wasn't that I didn't care, it's that I didn't have the ability to change it. Anyhow, so he sent me for some blood tests, and then a few weeks later I was walking across the office floor. I remember it really vividly, and I got a text message, and the text message said, you need to go for an MRI scan. And it was at that point when kind of my whole world kind of tumbled, and I was just like in shock, because the superficial weight gain, which is how I viewed it. I was, I knew I was overweight. Ideally, I would have liked to have been, lighter. But now that superficial weight gain was actually something that was going to affect my life. And from that point, I made kind of some small changes, and those small changes that were easier to adopt. By about 8 months in, I realised I was still losing weight, and yet I was the world's worst dieter, and so something wasn't right. Something didn't add up, and it was at that point I thought, I need to try and work out what's going on here, because if I've been able to make that journey from someone who was a passionate diet hater. I would say that with a really strong passion. And to actually get to the point where 8 months in, it's felt kind of effortless, I need to write it down. So anyhow, I started writing a book, spent a long time getting it all perfect, and then realised it had missed half the system out. I didn't understand half of it, and long story short, the past 4 years I've been trying to decode, drill down, and get to the nub of the issue. And I think I've done that. And in terms of, you were saying what's my mission? I think my mission is to try and help people to find their self-motivation, because at the end of the day, it comes down to waking up in the morning with a smile on your face and saying, I'm gonna make most of the better choices today. Not every day, not every week, not every month, but most of the time it's about making that choice.
Brilliant. Very interesting story. So even you have tried to go to put yourself on diet and restriction, but that didn't work. I have looked at your photo, and I can see a massive difference before and after. So there is a big change, and you achieved this through not restricted diet.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I tried about maybe a decade ago to do Weight Watchers. I think I managed about 2 months on it, and I did lose about 20 pounds. But the problem with Weight Watchers is that it's, like you said, restrictive. And I think for people that use food as their happy place, so I love food, it's not just the greed, it's not just the kind of the consumption, there's also the, you share family time with food. Food is a very bringing together thing. So there's a real kind of association of love with food. And for someone that is sensitive, maybe thinks of others first and uses food, the restrictive diet fundamentally doesn't work. Not because it doesn't work scientifically, but because a restrictive diet is telling you that your natural instinct is wrong. So what you feel inside you, you have to say, I have to go against what I am. But actually that part of you is that sensitivity and that liking to bring people together. So that's fundamentally why that never worked for me. And what I actually did was, instead of worrying about what I was eating, because if you look around me, you probably know people in your friends or family where you've got people who kind of eat what they want, but they don't worry about the weight. And so you've got this kind of, you've got this how can they do that? And how come when I eat, and yes, there's a genetics. Yes, there's a massive thing about lifestyle. Maybe they're very busy. Maybe they've got the fast twitch muscles. Maybe they're up till 11 o'clock at night every day doing errands and things. But fundamentally, you can manage your weight with any food. Is it a good idea to choose an unhealthy food? No. And obviously we should try and choose more healthier foods. But the concept is, if initially you focus on when you eat your food, then actually that helps you to make the first steps. And because just changing when you eat the foods, and I don't mean you're eating at strange times, but just being mindful of your portion size and how much time you wait before you eat again, if you just make those steps, actually you can start losing weight and it can feel effortless. And that is the key to everything, because if you can feel happy doing it, because when I was on a diet it was always kind of miserable. You accepted you had to do a diet, and it was a quid pro quo. You had that kind of negativity. But the difference with this system is it actually makes you happier. And the funny thing is, if you succeed in, for example, waiting till you're hungry to eat, the great thing is you get a treat of eating food. So actually the diet is motivated by the thing that we love, food. So every time you wait till you're hungry to eat, which is how you judge how long you need to wait, so you wait until you're hungry to eat. As soon as you feel a little bit hungry, you eat some food. And the rule is, there's basically 3 rules, and it's simple as this. 1, if you're not hungry, don't eat. Number 2, when you are hungry, and this is as soon as you're hungry, so you mustn't endure, I'm going to wait 3 hours and lose extra calories. You must eat as soon as you're hungry, and the reason is so you eat logically and not out of control hunger. you then eat a portion which is slightly smaller, about 75% of your old portion, and really focusing on reducing those carbohydrates, especially the white ones, the ultra processed ones. And if you follow those two rules, so you're eating only when you're hungry, you're eating slightly smaller portion, you will naturally start to lose weight. And the reason is that those two rules focus on two key strategies. So the first strategy is we're reducing the chance of fat storage in the day. So when we eat things like Mars bars, cakes, pastries, bread, all of that food is so efficiently made that it's almost pre-digested, and when we eat it, when we consume it, and we eat too many of them, if we go over a certain amount, say 500 calories that your liver stores, your body then needs to store that as fat. So if you can reduce the chance of that, that's the first kind of optimization. And the second thing we're doing is we're increasing the chance of fat burning at night. And the way that we do that is by eating your dinner a little bit earlier and having a slightly smaller portion, and then waiting a little bit later to have your breakfast in the morning, or just being mindful of that gap, making it as long as you can without getting too hungry. That will then increase the chances of fat burning. So I said there were 3 rules. The first 2 are that one. The third rule, and this is actually the best one, and this is why it isn't a diet, is if you can't follow rule 1 and 2 for whatever reason, so you're tired, I don't know, something's happened, the boiler's broken, you've had a flat tire, enjoy your food. And there's no restriction on that, it's just enjoy your food. And that gap allows you to feel normal. And obviously, as soon as you've got a little bit of willpower back, you go back to rule 1 and 2. But it might take days or weeks or months. There's no kind of limit on it. But that's in a nutshell the kind of the system.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. So food was the first thing you took in order to improve your health and take a step forward. And let's talk about comfort eating. And we know that comfort eating can be linked to some health issues such as type 2 diabetes and obesity. Can you share how comfort eating affects health and diabetes management? I know you talk a lot about comfort eating and its impact.
I think that the first thing to say about comfort eating is I'm still exactly the same person now that I was 4 years ago. So fundamentally, the things I like are exactly the same, and I'm still a comfort eater. I love eating food. What has changed is I now have slightly better boundaries, and most of the time I'm able to adopt those boundaries. So that's really important to say, because a lot of people feel like, oh, I love food and there's something wrong with me. There's absolutely nothing wrong with us. And in fact, it's actually modern life that's causing the problem. In the olden days when we ate food that wasn't ultra processed, you eat some food and it's whole foods and it takes a long time to digest, and then you don't get the blood sugar spikes, and that avoids the likelihood of fat gain, etc. So it's the modern foods that are causing this, and it's no surprise that we love them, because when our brain receives a food into our body like that and it's really efficient, your brain just tells you have more of it, eat more of it. So everything about the psychology of it is encouraging us to eat more of the comfort food. And that, for me, it hasn't gone away. And when I was on a diet, you enter this mindset which is actually logical. And you think, right, I'm never going to eat, comfort food again. I'm just going to be restrictive all my life, and it's easy, I'll just carry on. But actually, it's impossible to do. You can't restrict yourself all your life, especially if you're someone that's sensitive and someone comes to you with one of their problems, and then you take on board that problem, and it makes you feel sad, and you need to comfort yourself. So the comfort eating never goes, but the power it has over you does diminish, and that gets less and less the more you practice. And it's about, instead of saying I'm never going to comfort eat again, it's about saying, and that's the reason for the third rule, which is, when you feel down, just enjoy your food, deeply enjoy the food, whatever you're eating, is because when you have that rest, when you kind of, have that blowout, I still regularly have blowouts. I can't get rid of the blowouts, but what I change is I change the amount of time before I then eat again. And for example, when I first started, it was very much about eating. I probably had 5 meals a day. So I'd have my breakfast, a mid-morning snack, lunch, and then mid-afternoon snack and an evening meal. They were smaller, but I would have to have the 5 meals because I couldn't cope with long periods without eating. And there's a real element of fear about not being able to eat, and that comfort of like, I'd use comfort eating to help me tackle tasks. So let's say I was gonna, walk up a mountain. I'd think, right, I need to eat lots of calories because I'm going to do that, energetic thing. Just yesterday, so I went on a run. It was about 14k, a very slow trail run. The time I'd eaten before that was lunchtime on Saturday. So I hadn't eaten for, say, 20 hours before I did that run. And in all honesty, although I was a little bit slower, but I was fine. I regularly run fasted. I don't do tons of running, but I've got to the point where, because I've done it so much, the eating when I'm hungry, you get to a point where you realise that actually the food we're eating is so calorie dense that we don't need that much of it. And so this thing about comfort eating is, it's never going to go away. We can diminish its hold on us, and we can also use timing, the time between our meals, to counteract binges. And that helps to avoid this kind of perfection mindset where we have to think, right, we're only going to eat non-ultra processed foods, because it's just not possible. That's my feeling. If you're a normal person, that caring person, and you live a normal life around your friends, your family, it's just not possible to eat perfect food all the time. And I think that's the starting point.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing this great advice. So sometimes we try to justify why we need to eat a lot, or for some reason we end up with eating lots of food, even if we don't have to. And you have already touched on restricted diet and so on. In your videos, you talk about avoiding diet misery and making lifestyle changes more sustainable. What is diet misery, and how is the approach you are promoting is different from traditional or restricted diets?
I like to say the difference is a bit like day and night, and actually it practically is the difference between day and night. So for a normal person, a normal healthy person, your fat burn will happen at night, because at night you eat your last meal, your body starts drawing down on all its reserves, it uses all the spare glycogen, all the spare carbs, the sugar in your body, and then if you have a long enough fast and you haven't eaten too much food, you'll get to the end of the night just before morning and your body will start to burn a little bit of fat. Your body hates burning fat. I mean, it hates it with a passion. It will shout at you angrily when it needs to burn fat, because fat is like its reserves. And so with a diet, what happens is you have to spend the whole of the day trying to restrict yourself. So if you take something like Weight Watchers, where you're pointing, or if you're doing macros, counting your protein, your carbohydrates and your fats, the whole day you're mentally thinking, can I eat that? I'm hungry. You're trying to do the fasting, the painful bit of the nighttime in the day. And so what we do is we flip it round completely, and actually in the day we try and load our bodies with less fuel. So we try and end the day without a full tank, but an almost empty tank. And that's key, because then your overnight fast is much more efficient. But the beauty of it is you avoid the diet misery. So the miserable part happens at night when you're asleep. So it's being a bit more careful in the day, and like I say, when I was on a diet, you're always thinking about food. Like, can I have some food? Can I have the biscuits? Well, how many calories is it going to add? And in your mind, it's very intensive and painful. And I think the beauty of the simplicity of the 3 rules is it's less about the food. Yes, you do make some simple swaps. You do try and, I don't eat much pasta and rice now because I've got a sedentary lifestyle. I just don't, as a human sat down most of the day, I don't need that many calories. If I was someone who chopped down trees or a nurse, I would definitely be taking advantage of all of those rice and pasta, needing the extra food. But it's just that misery of like constantly having to use your willpower to fight against your natural instincts. Whereas when you tune into your hunger, actually you eat when you're hungry. It makes you feel happy because you've got to eat, and then you're motivated to then wait till you're next hungry. So it just flips it completely on its head and takes away the bureaucracy, the unnecessary bureaucracy.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing these great insights and advice. So you are saying that use the night for rest to burn calories. You recommend that we don't eat at night, and main meals should be during the day.
Yeah, and it is hard because in the week I tend to be better, and at the weekend I tend to struggle, and I will end up probably having a big meal on a Friday night, maybe even a Saturday, and that's when I would use waiting till I'm hungry. I'd probably miss out breakfast, maybe even lunch now. Now I'm 4 years in. Initially I wouldn't have missed lunch as well, but in the week I tend to try and eat a bit earlier. Definitely. Having that last meal as early as you can will make a difference, because you'll burn down those calories in the evening and almost go to bed a tiny bit hungry. And that's when if you can go to bed a tiny bit hungry and you've eaten smallish portions throughout the day, that's actually a way to know that you've had a good day. And what happens is, if you do that, say 5 or 7 days a week, and you lose weight, it gives you confidence in that instinctive approach, as opposed to having to use calories, which at the end of the day is an approximation, and it doesn't really help.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that as well. And do you think restricted diet, or putting ourselves into a restricted system where we end up with craving more food? What do you think about restriction and craving food?
I think that's why I talk about the fact that I accidentally started losing weight, and I think in my subconscious, my subconscious was, when I got that text message, it was like, you need a way to still be able to binge. There's no way around it. And I think that's how it kind of just accidentally kind of happened, because I did start eating only when I was hungry. I think you're completely right. You have to allow that binge to come out in whatever way as it's needed, because if you don't, what happens is you'll get to a point where you will just then reject the whole system, and you will actually turn away from it, and then you will kind of dive into oblivion, because then you'll just start eating too much food. And I think enabling that blowout, a proper blowout, and all of the diets have the ability to have a blowout. On Weight Watchers, you can have a pizza, that's fine, you save up your points, and at the end of the week you have 47 points extra and have a pizza. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about literally eat whatever you want, and although that sounds ridiculous, and to when you suggest it to people, they're like, that sounds wrong, but the reality is, what happens over time is, as it becomes more successful, you actually want to do it more. So there's less times in the week or the month that you end up having that blowout, and that's the key to it. Make it fun and engaging initially, and it will work long term.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. let's talk about balance or finding balance. Balancing the mind, the body, and food can be challenging, specifically for those with type 2 diabetes. I noticed you have something called Balance 3D. So, can you tell our audience how you personally achieve this balance, and what tips can you provide for our viewers and listeners? I noticed that you have a circle with different pillars or sections. If you can talk about that as well.
Yep. So I don't know if you've ever seen at the gym. Have you seen those balance boards? They're like a circle with like a ball on the bottom, and you're meant to stand on them and balance. So the concept is learning to become more balanced. You never become balanced. Life is never static, so you always have to kind of adapt and change. And this circle you're talking about, it has three elements. It's got your mind, your body, and your fuel. And these elements actually relate to three parts of our kind of body or our being. So your mind relates to who you are. That's actually got a name. It's called Matt. So that's your personality, the fun bit of you that wants to kind of run around, bring people together, go and eat some food. That's Matt. There's the fueling part. That's actually called Faye. So I call her the voice of Mother Nature, and this is the nagging voice in your head. So a lot of people talk about, their head's kind of telling them off, and there's this voice in the head, and they need to silence it. Well, Faye is, she's a bit a chicken. She's a wise chicken. She's got like glasses, and so she's very wise, and she knows things, but she pecks your head, and she tells you, don't eat that because you'll get fat. Don't eat that, and it's this incessant nagging. And then the third element, your body, that's actually run by a little robot called Bob, and he sits in your stomach. And I know this sounds a bit far-fetched, but it's a really nice way to understand it. So Bob is the reason that we're getting type 2 diabetes, because Bob always does things in a certain way. So he's actually very disciplined. And when we put too many refined carbohydrates in, that's when Bob automatically stores them all as fat. So what we have to do is we have to learn how Bob works, and then fuel ourselves slightly differently, and then Bob will be your discipline. And this is the amazing thing. So the first step is, let's get disciplined with eating when we're hungry. And again, there's flexibility around that, but Bob adds the discipline in. And what happens is, over the first 3 weeks, you should probably lose some weight, and it'll feel effortless. And at the end of it, you'll look back and you'll say, how can I have lost weight? I've done nothing. And you'll actually feel suddenly this weight lifted off you, because you'll be like, I've managed to do something that's really hard and it hasn't felt hard. And so this gives you the positive mindset, which then says, do you know what, I want to carry on doing this. Because I think one of the truths that nobody's talking about nowadays is that real change, and what I mean by real change is like physical fitness, mental fitness, getting happier, so you wake up happy every day. Most people who are where I was, you might be 10 years away from that, and that's a really scary thought. And that's actually the reason why most of us turn away and we don't make the change, because it's too hard. And so the way to do it is to focus on the simplest things first to get to a point where you're happier. Then once you're happier, you keep doing it, and over the kind of the months and the quarters, you'll get much better. Then you'll start becoming physically fit. So this is then the next stage. You start to add fitness in, because if you add that in at the start, that will confuse it, and you'll think that to lose weight I need to do fitness as well. You don't. You can just focus on the food. Then you add the fitness in, and then you get to a point, and this is really where actually the weight loss becomes less important, because you get to a point where you actually want to fix other things in your life, like your relationships, your job, just having more being able to send things back from in a restaurant where you're not happy with the food, just having more confidence to be more yourself in real life. And that's where you might do something like coaching. And so the way to get happier, long term, is to start by doing something really simple that makes you happy. And so that's my kind of, my big takeout will be choose a system that works with your personality, but then focus on something that changes over time and doesn't make you do the hard stuff first. You will have to do the hard stuff, but you'll be much tougher at that point, and so it'll be easier.
Brilliant. Very interesting concept. Because what drew my attention when I saw the circle and how you divided them, then you talk about mind, body, and food, and how to balance them. Very interesting information to share. And you just mentioned the people can struggle or face challenges, and this will lead us to the next part of this episode. So we know that limiting beliefs can be major obstacle to personal growth. How can people identify and overcome these limiting beliefs in the context of their health journey?
Yeah. So I think first of all is the first step is almost a reprogramming. And this is why, so the first part of the system is this kind of 3 weeks where you just focus on your hunger. And you're not meant to do anything else, because what you need to do is prove to your body that you can lose weight without, doing all the complicated Weight Watchers things. That is actually teaching Faye, your subconscious, that you can do it, and that actually removes some of the limiting beliefs. Because at the point, the day before I got the text message, in my head, my skepticism was 100% sure that I couldn't diet. Now 4 years in, I know that I'm mentally much, much stronger than most people. And, that's because I have built really strong discipline, mental and physical discipline over the years, gradually, very gradually and gently, but in a way that leaves me now very strong, someone who can kind of cope with adversity and all these kind of issues. But the thing about how do you know which limiting beliefs, it's a bit chicken and egg. And I think the best way to start tackling your limiting beliefs is by doing something that makes you healthier and happier. Because the reality is tackling your limiting beliefs is hard, and you've probably got lots of them, not just to do with food or to do with your image or to do with internal things, but even then things like your job, your relationship. At the end of the day, this all comes down to boundaries. Now with the food, it's like how much food, when, but then with your relationships, all of the issues come down to the kind of the boundaries that we create, and we let people control us or don't let them control us, or maybe we're too harsh or not harsh enough. And so those things come later. And I think understanding that you're on a journey and just focusing on the now is the most important thing. Because if you think too far ahead, you'll get too worried and you'll try and do things that you're not ready to do.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. So now we managed to figure out the limiting beliefs and how to work on them. Let's talk about self-motivation. So we know what to do. Now, how I can continue on this path. For people who struggle with self-motivation and are looking to make long-term changes, what advice would you offer, especially for long-term? Because I can do something once, twice, but at some point I stop. I don't continue.
Yeah. I think if I start at where I am now and I work backwards, so I think, I wake up in the morning and most mornings I'm happy. And if I have a day where something goes wrong, I can have crappy days, but then the day after I tend to wake up happy. So that's not what used to happen when I was 4 years ago. I'd wake up and I'd dread things, confrontations I didn't want, or things that I knew I needed to change but couldn't. But to build where I've got to now, the one thing that I've done is learn to pick myself up faster. So as I said with the comfort eating, we're always going to fail. We're always going to overeat. We're always going to have those binges. When you have that binge, all that's going to happen is in your head is going to be that voice: you've failed. You've failed. You might as well carry on failing. Just keep going. Just don't bother going back to it. And that is an inevitability. And so I think it comes back to what I was saying before. It's really, where I am now is much, much, much harder than where I started. But I am physically, mentally stronger, so it's fine. And I think the important thing is to start with something that's simple and makes you happy. Because if the system, if the strategy you use for life makes you happy, then fundamentally, if you keep going back to it, if you keep learning to pick yourself up after you've had too much food, so that's why the third rule is so important, because after you've had the binge and you've enjoyed it, the next day, if you can just wait till you're hungry, or the next week or month or whatever, once you get back on it, that's it, you've learned to pick yourself up again. And if you can keep picking yourself up again because the system makes you happy, the whole thing is cyclical, it feeds itself. And I think looking at a system that feeds itself with happiness and that is driven by things you love, like food, that's the way to harness your skill. Because my skill is eating. I'm really good at eating. I'm like really good. And I could be a professional eater. So if we can somehow harness that skill, that is, then you've got it. Because if you love eating, you wake up in the morning, I love eating, brilliant. If the system uses eating, that's it.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. So regardless if you fail or success, regardless the success or the failure, so we need to keep trying. And we accept if there is a failure. So we don't just stop. We have to keep trying. Right.
Sorry, sorry, I missed that last bit. Did you say why?
No, I mean, regardless if we succeed or fail, we have to keep trying.
Yes, 100%. Because, and I think if you look back at, like when I was trying to diet, my goal was to lose some weight. Well, losing weight doesn't make you happy. When you're in the middle of it and you're losing weight and people tell you, oh, you look great. Yes, that does give you instantaneous pleasure. But when you're 3 years in and the daily struggle becomes much harder, the weight loss doesn't make your life easier, it makes it harder. It makes it a lot harder. And actually real life is a struggle to climb up the mountain. And not just one mountain, it's like once you've climbed up one, if you have ambition, if you want to be a better person, there's another one that's higher. You never finish climbing the mountain. And I think the problem is that a diet is a specific goal, which, number one, it doesn't motivate you, it doesn't make you happy, and two, it's finite. So when you finish it, what do you do? So becoming mentally and physically more tougher will enable you to do much more in your life. And actually the real benefit is enabling you to achieve those goals and dreams you gave up on decades ago. And that's why I'm kind of so, that's why I wake up excited every day, because I'm now doing something which fundamentally is what I was kind of put on the planet to do. And it's like, and that's what makes you happy. That's what gives you a goal. That's what keeps you, waking up in the morning and, not eating for 20 hours until, the evening. Because it is tough. But if you have a bigger goal, a higher goal, being there for your grandkids and work-wise, going for that job you've always wanted, which is really hard. Maybe you need to restudy. Maybe you need to, learn a new language. Most people have got time to do it if you took the scroll time away. They've got time to go to university or to, do remote learning and things like that, but they don't, because it's hard. It's really hard. So
that's right.
it's that, it's about finding your goal in life ultimately, and then heading towards that with conviction and mental and physical fitness.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that as well. I have got another question before we finish this episode. What inspiring or advice would you like to leave with our viewers and listeners, especially those who are struggling with type 2 diabetes?
The thing I would say to you is, when you look on the telly and you see, these PTs, these personal trainers, these people, and we just think, I'm nothing like them, I can never be like them. The thing I'd say to you is, you don't want to be like them. What you are is fine. All you need to do is a bit of learning. And the reason I can say that passionately and with truth is, I'm still the same person I was. I was the world's worst dieter 4 years ago, and I still am. Legitimately, I have, I've managed to make a change. And if you can focus on, it's flicking the switch to make the decision to change. So when I got the text message, that caused me to kind of start to make a change. But if you can do something that you love and works with your personality, you've got a much better chance of succeeding. So it's really focus on what you're good at and lean into that, and choose a system that really works with that.
Brilliant. Very interesting and inspiring message from Tom. And the last one, how can people find you if they want to get in touch, learn more about you and what you do?
Yeah, so if you just search up Balanced, which is the word balance, but the last E is a 3, and we've actually got a completely free course, which you can go on that first 3-week journey. So if you want to get involved, try and find me on the socials, and then that would be great to have you on board. It's really exciting that we can help other people do the same.
If you can say the name of the website with the extension, is it .com or
.co.uk? Thank you. So balanced.co.uk.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for sharing your contact information. First and foremost, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our amazing guest, Tom Salvini, for generously sharing his expertise, insights, and time with us today. Your contribution has truly elevated this episode, and I deeply appreciate the information you have provided. I want also to thank every one of you, our dedicated viewers and listeners, for being a part of this episode. If you are seeking additional assistance and support on your health journey, I encourage you to book a discovery call with me at wellnessimpact.org. During this call, we can discuss your needs and explore how I can provide personalized assistance while addressing any questions you may have. If you found this episode insightful and valuable, I invite you to join our community of people committed to thriving with diabetes. To stay up to date for upcoming episodes, empowering discussions, and practical tips, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. For those who prefer other platforms such as Spotify, you can follow the Thriving with Diabetes podcast. Once again, thank you, Tom, for being our guest today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this impactful journey. Until next time, take care of your health and keep thriving.